Hello, everybody out there. Thanks for joining Resolute Square. It's May 21st, and I am surrounded by once former foes in the Democratic Party. I like this new neighborhood. I hang out a lot. Joe Trippi, who I was always terrified against going against, a legendary Democratic consultant who basically invented modern campaigning in 2004 with the Dean campaign, and David Pepper. Who is one of the more interesting, compelling figures on the American political scene. Ohio Democratic Party chair, podcaster, writer. Check out his Substack on David Pepper. But mainly we know him as an artist. He is a painter.
Yep.
I know he was motivated to go into that in his increasing desire to follow in George Bush's footsteps. Um, and I wanted to kick off talking about this great piece that uh, David co-wrote uh, about states' rights. It was in Resolute Square, and if you haven't read it, you definitely should check it out. Um, for those of us who grew up in the South, states' rights has a ominous feel because it was always the uh, sort of socially accepted way to say that you were for segregation. Um, and it is a phrase that is returned. And David, you did a great analysis of it. Can you just kind of share what?
Sure. And it's similar to the Dobbs opinion, what's happening. States' rights maybe has a slightly different meaning than during the Jim Crow era, but in this age of hyper gerrymandering, lawlessness in states like Ohio, and if you hear a little noise behind me, this is an event to try and end gerrymandering. We have something on the ballot. That's the energy this year. When they refer to states' rights these days, it's basically send all the issues to states that are no longer democracies, so that we can do unpopular things in these states, despite the fact that the majority of people in those states don't agree with them. But it's so gerrymandered, or we've gotten rid of direct democracy, or whatever it is, that they're basically saying, we want to settle this controversial issue that we know is deeply unpopular. We want to settle it in states where the people can't undo it. And so when you hear, and so the combination of Dobbs and gerrymandering, and then you throw in dark money too, it says United, or Trump saying states' rights and gerrymandering, it's basically confining every issue that Mitch McConnell probably knows is a hot potato at the Senate and saying, oh, we won't put it there. We're going to run it through states where no one can stop it. That's been their game plan for a long time. But if you elevate Trump and they start really activating it, what we've been dealing with in states like Ohio for a long time just got a lot worse. And that was the point of our article.
Yeah, Joe, Alabama would be a good example of this, right? Where you
Yeah,
you elected the
yeah,
first and only Democrat this century, um, and it seems to be a
it,
perfect example of a state that's out of touch with even its own population, its own
yeah.
citizens.
No, it's crazy. I mean, where you get the IVP, gosh, the ban I don't know why I'm missing up on this, but um, the Supreme Court, they keep appointing more right wing Supreme Court justices there because there's no. I mean, they keep all the judgeships or even the elected ones. It's one party rule, and so you have you know on everything now they can. It's exactly like David said. They can literally. It's unpopular as hell to ban uh, to ban infertile. God, can somebody help me? Because I'm for some reason having a mind.
IVF.
Yeah,
IVF.
IVF. Yeah. I got the letters mixed up. IVF. They want to ban IVF. There's no one in Alabama. There's no families in Alabama. I mean, families that want to have children, want to have a family that thinks this is a good idea. But they keep, the court banned it. You now have Trump today talking about he might look at birth control, at restrictions on birth control. Now they'll make him walk that back, but that's crap. That's exactly what they want to do,
Yeah.
and so that's what's going to happen in these states where they've got, total control. The judiciary, the legislature, the governor's office, the attorney general, all of it. They will, and you see this in places like Texas, with the AG, trying to impose or sue on laws that no one in the state's for, but they keep getting away with it. The same in Florida with the 6-week ban. Now the people go out and they put a real, initiative that would reimpose and reinstate Roe v. Wade, and they're gonna the dark money. Watch it; it's gonna come. They're gonna and the state party MAGA establishment will do everything they can to really run roughshod over the people, which is David's seen that in Ohio with the way
Yeah.
they tried to get the way they tried to raise the stakes and the level you had to get to change the laws there by initiative.
Yeah, and if I
David,
can
yeah,
just
go ahead.
and
Go ahead.
what the difference between the old Jim Crow states' rights and now is, it's not just the South; it's any state, even ones Obama won. Iowa, Indiana, Ohio,
Yeah.
any state where you have these locked up, gerrymandered systems, you will have flowing from that corruption, extremism, and continued attacks on democracy to keep all that extremism going, because they know if they ever had a fair system, they would all lose as extremists out of touch. And just to be clear, this is not like a state level agenda. This is the national agenda, organized by the Koch brothers and ALEC. It is a national agenda that the vehicle of that agenda being accomplished is through the states. And we have to see it as this is their national front line. It's not Mike Johnson in Congress. If he's a goofball, doesn't do anything, they don't care, because most of their toxic agenda is running through the states. And one other thing, a lot of these states, it's gotten better this year than 2 years ago. It's not just that they're gerrymandered. In many of these places, in Mike Johnson's example of this, they're not even contested. 50% of the Tennessee Republicans who voted out the two Justins, uncontested. Mike
Right.
Johnson's first race for state house, uncontested primary, uncontested general. His reelection, uncontested. So we're talking about an entire generation of people who've never been in democracy, yet they have this massive power through state houses. And so we have to end gerrymandering, but we also have to see that that's their front line. So it's got to start being our front line as well, just like we went to Alabama and won a special election on the IVF issue. We need to do a lot more of that going forward to start bending the curve back to normal in these states.
Right.
So, do you guys see where's the National Democratic Party on this? And are they realizing this? Are they engaging on it?
I will tell you, I wrote a book on Laboratories of Autocracy. That's quite a
Yep.
negative title. It's doing better now than then. North Carolina, and it's not just, Jamie Harrison put out a challenge, to his credit, to state parties to run in more places. Great. And he's from South Carolina, so he gets it. North Carolina, 2 years ago, they had like 40% of their districts, I think close to 30 of them, uncontested. They have a great new young chair. She's in her mid-20s from rural North Carolina. Only 2 uncontested races this year. Phenomenal. Florida has been working hard. I believe if we can get the filing fees paid, 0 uncontested races this year when they have abortion on the ballot and a Senate race on the ballot. So the good news is Idaho, no uncontested races. Arizona, every district contested. So we are seeing a lot of positive momentum about people figuring out, not running against these extremists. In the very short term, might have felt sort of you're saving a little bit here and there. But long term, when you let extremism keep running without any opposition, what's the lesson? It gets worse and worse and worse. So people are catching up to this, and there's a lot more people on the ballot this year than there were 2 years ago in a lot of red and blue and purple states.
Yeah, but the
I mean,
fact is that look, the Democratic Party was asleep at the switch on local stuff,
right.
and in too many places. Like we abandoned in places like Alabama and Idaho. We didn't put any money, any time in, and I think it was things like Doug Jones winning in Alabama that and the rise of MAGA that actually made the party start to. I'm not talking about people locally who decided, no, I got to run, but I think now you're starting to see a real turn in where the National Party, and I guess Jamie Harrison's a good example of who's leading that, of understanding, no, we need to invest in these places. We need to fight. We need to start fighting everywhere, every day. Now, my old boss, Howard Dean, back right when he became chair, that was the 50-state strategy. But everybody else in the party said, no, 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 we can't. We've only got a few places we need to fight to win.
Right.
And I think that helped dig this hole. But I think we're digging out now,
Yeah, a
and
lot of people, Joe,
headed.
always when they hear me talk, they say, "Didn't Howard Dean do this?"
Yeah,
And
exactly.
one reason no one was running is because the response down the road to Howard Dean is not just we shouldn't run in these places. It's a waste to run in these places. It's a
Right,
waste of money. Why would anyone ever run in a tough place if even in their own party there's this overall, oh, that's just not smart. We're wasting money. And so one of the things we have to start doing, all of us, and the folks behind me, I just introduced people running for state house rep as patriots. The harder the district, the more patriotic you are for running. We have to surround people running in tough areas with the immense value they are bringing to democracy by doing so, win or lose. And for a long time, we did the opposite. We said, oh, that's not a district we can win. No one's challenged that person in years. What a waste of money. And so, of course, no one was running in these places. And that
right.
is starting to change, I think, at multiple levels.
Yeah, listen, there's something I've wanted to ask you for a long time. You know, I worked in Ohio a lot, right? Um, in sort of the old, let's call it, Republican Party. How is it that this all changed in Ohio? You know, how is it that it went from Rod Portman to J.D. Vance?
I would.
What?
I,
Yeah,
I was in a room the other day talking about gerrymandering, and the old governor, who I'm quite friendly with, Bob Taft, was in the room.
Yeah,
And by the way, so was a woman named Liz Keating, the granddaughter of the famous Keating Republican, not the one who got in trouble, but this very upstanding congressman. And I said in front of them, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think they nodded. I said, the first victim of these gerrymandered systems are not Democrats. It's moderate Republicans. They are the first to
right.
go. In a
yeah.
gerrymandered system, there will always be Democrats. That's part of the gerrymander. They're given good seats. The first victim in a gerrymandered systems are moderate Republicans or Republicans who stand up for their districts. We had this happen in Texas a few weeks ago. To their credit, rural Texas Republicans voted with Democrats to stop a universal voucher school plan that would have crushed rural public schools. They stood with Democrats. They defeated Governor Abbott's plan on universal vouchers, which are running roughshod over the country, mainly going to private schools. There are no private schools in rural Texas getting any money. They voted no with Democrats. They stopped it. They all faced primaries. Dark money flew in from DeVos and others, and almost all of them lost. It's a perfect example. They're probably not moderate. They're probably very conservative. But for one moment, they stood up to the far right interests for the good of their people and their districts, and they are now gone. And this is happening around the country. So one of the things that's frustrating when I see moderate Republicans going along with the gerrymandering and the other things, they are literally sharpening the weapons of their own demise because they're the first to go. And the extreme Republicans in states like Ohio, they don't want the moderate Republican speaking up and saying, well, that bill's too far for me. I don't want to go along with that. I want to work with Democrats. They want to eliminate them first and foremost and then have a nice 65-35 majority where the Democrats aren't that relevant. But yes, it's changing because the first people to go are those moderates. And so going back, I see people commenting on J.D. Vance. When I see a Rob Portman endorsing a J.D. Vance, it's mind-boggling. You're
It's
literally,
mind-boggling. It's
yeah, and
mind-boggling.
what those moderates became, like Portman and even Mike DeWine, their legacy, and this is harsh. Their legacy is they were in the end transition figures to the extremists, and they allowed their brand to be
Couldn't agree
used
more.
to transition to extremists.
Yep.
And in the end, that's mostly the role they played in their time in politics. And for the
I
life of me,
listen.
I will never
I
understand it.
Rob Portman and I worked together very closely on debate prep for Cheney and Bush.
I bet.
I did his race when he first ran. Loved the guy. Spent many an hour bicycling with him, including across Ohio and some charity rides. Loved the guy. Loved the guy.
We might have been on a
And
ride together.
Yeah, the one that started at Ohio State and ended up at
Yeah.
Kenyon. It was
Yeah.
great run. Um, and after the Access Hollywood tape, he said he wasn't going to vote for Trump, but he was going to vote for Mike Pence. And I was like, how does that work? Like, in the ballot, how does, I'm confused here. How do you vote for vice president? You don't vote for president.
Yeah.
And then in 20, he endorsed Trump and JD Vance.
And JD Vance had said early in the Ukraine war, I don't care what happens.
Right.
Rob Portman was the chair of the Ukraine caucus.
Yeah.
And even though Vance had completely previewed all we've seen about what he's done with Ukraine since, Portman ended up endorsing him over Tim Ryan. So I will never for my life understand why you'd want your legacy to be basically my role in life is I allowed the extremists to knock me and the rest of my more common sense folks out. That's what he's done, and frankly, he's been a little better on some issues. But Mike DeWine went along with the gerrymander as well, and kind of did the same thing. For the life of me, it's I will never understand why they acted that way.
But
And
it's
where was
personal.
John Kasich?
It's personal survival. I mean, they're putting their personal political survival for one more term or whatever the
But
hell.
they didn't even have a
But
future
they
term.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
No,
DeWine's
that's what
in
I'm
his second
saying.
term. Like it's and what frustrates me is I do see people who step up. I see Republicans who are being brave, and they often had a much longer career in front of them than Rob Port, Mike DeWine, and they did
Right.
it.
And
So
they're
why
most of
is
them
it?
are all purged. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say. They want to still be part of the club, even though the club
yeah,
now is a crazy MAGA. It's that. I mean, which I think is like just horrifying. I mean, like the cowardice of not stepping up when you have the ability to fight is just amazing to me as well. But I think it's all self, you know,
yes.
being a member of the club, wanting to be at the at the table and all that stuff is just that they all are still doing that, even when they now know. I mean, when we got the guy doing the United Reich in
Right.
you're right. I mean, it's amazing that they're still willing, and I still think there's also this like it's not going to happen. It's all he'll go away, and when he does, it'll all be fine. Which is
And
which
when
is just wishful thinking.
and when you read about the United Reich, and you go, I recently read the book In the Garden of Beasts, which is a
Oh,
rewrite.
fabulous book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Eric Larson.
they at first thought he was a clown. Then the foreign officials all thought, oh, we can control him. The business people thought we'll be in charge. And you read that book. Eric Larson wrote it long before this era. He wasn't writing it to predict anything, but
Yeah.
what the early to mid 30s were exactly, Joe, what you described, which is the
Just,
people in his own party just thinking, oh, we got this, and he's kind of amusing, but he's not going to last. And we all know the rest of that horrible story.
just for clarity, In the Garden of the Beast is a beautiful story about Germany in the 30s that really focuses on the American ambassador and his family.
Yeah,
Um, it, Larson's extraordinarily talented. His ability to bring these things to life.
yeah,
It's an incredibly powerful book. And as I joked with my used to joke, it's not really funny anymore. My Republican friends, it's crazy to say it's 1936 Germany now when it's so obviously 1938.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
What's
guys,
interesting in that book is the ambassador initially, to his credit, he's sort of an outsider. He initially is sort of like the others. Oh, this is not that. He doesn't get the seriousness. Within a couple years, he is literally five-alarm fire, trying to
yeah,
get the State Department, trying to get people there. He goes back to America and is treated like dirt because he's the one who continues to say, this is horrible. And even then, people are still, like Joe said, in denial. They think they're still in control. They think it's a joke. And he spent the rest of his life trying to raise the alarm, and people generally still didn't listen.
yeah. This is the moment when I have to bring up there's an extraordinary book called Memoirs of Franz von Papen. And Franz von Papen was the Prussian aristocrat who really did more than anyone else to usher Hitler into power. And it was quotes that he has, things that he said are almost verbatim what Mitch McConnell said. Uh, We will be able to change him. There are more of us than him. He will change. So Franklin Papin in 1953 wrote a memoir. So you could say between the 30s, 1953, things went a little sideways, right? World War II, the Holocaust, it didn't exactly work out. And he's still trying to justify it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You can, for some reason, you can get this on Kindle. I have no idea why there's such a demand for Franklin Papin's memoirs that it's on Kindle. But it is the same logic. He would say, look, we'd lost touch with the working class. The working class, which was true, the working class was going to become Bolshevik, communist. Hitler still had this connection with them. We needed him so the country wouldn't go Bolshevik. And this is the same when you look at when they talk about, like, Joe Biden being a socialist. Really? I mean, all the major stock indexes are at record high. That's socialism? That's pretty good. I don't know. But, this inability to imagine the future, I think, is sort
Yeah.
of one of the great underlying stories of this campaign. Joe, what did you make of this like latest New York Times polls and all this? Does any of this trouble you more than normal?
No, I still believe that all the polling is crap, and that the sampling is crap, and that frankly, even if it's not, no poll today matters. I mean, we can go back.
Yeah.
Dukakis was ahead by 15 points right now. It's and I keep saying there's two things one. Okay, so supposedly, and I'm not going to even use the word supposedly, Biden's having trouble. Blacks are, only, in the 70s instead of the 90s. Latinos are, are lower, 20 points lower, or 18 points lower than they were in 2020 right now in terms of voting support. Young people, uh, you know, he won them by massive amounts, but now it's supposedly, he's up by a few, or it's dicey. Okay, if those three things are true, and we're still in a dead heat with Donald Trump, then I'm telling you, Donald Trump is toast because,
He'll
yeah,
come home.
maybe, yeah, well, they don't even. We don't need to get back to 95 or 70. I mean, if those numbers are real and we're in a dead heat or behind by 2 or 3 or up by 1, then if 3, 4, 5 points of those three groups come back, he's toast. So what I'm saying is, even when I look at the polls today and you look at what's underneath, where the vote is underneath, you'd have to say Joe Biden's much stronger position. He knows who he needs to talk to, and then you got the Haley voters and others, and Dobbs dads, the fathers of who have daughters who are concerned about Dobbs. I mean, there's all these different groups that I believe are going to break, maybe not totally back to big 30-point margins, but back. And when they do, this thing is gonna open up. But the one thing I did want to get back to our other conversation is
Yeah.
Doug Jones gave a speech at Hamilton for their commencement, which was about three lanterns that need to be in the North Church in Boston. The Paul Revere's ride, where one if by land, two if by sea, but the third one that has to go up now is if if from within, and that all of us have to be the Paul Reveres that raise that alarm that David was talking about. Raise the alarm that the threat to the future of the United States is not coming by land or by sea. It is here, and it is this authoritarian, this gerrymandering, all of this stuff that David's talking about. And I urge people to go, Google it, and David, if you haven't read that speech, and
Great
Stuart,
speech.
it's a really important speech. I hope more people pick that up and read it and send it to their friends.
I'll do that.
Yeah. So, David, let me ask you an unfair question. If you were running the Biden campaign now, what would you what would you be doing?
That's a big question, and I'm not on the inside or
I
an
know,
expert
and
on
you have to
polls.
be.
But I think I think they need a lot of people out there making the case for what he's done. You don't want to accept what the other side has said, that everything's terrible, everything's bad. I think he needs to be, though, not feel like this whole campaign is just a defensive posture about how great the last 4 years have been. It needs to be future oriented too. Like,
Right.
I think young people and others, to win them over, like Joe said, well, what's he going to do? Like, that's what, in the end, and you guys have done this a lot longer than I have. The campaigns are about what's next as much as, what you've done. And if all this is, well, we did do a good job and we got to make sure. I don't think that's not a forward looking message that I think in the end is that compelling. The other one is, and what will Trump do? And this is maybe the most important part. And I heard that I was in Florida a few months ago and someone said this. Take out Project 2025. Take everything Trump is saying, no vaccines in schools at all, no contraception, states' rights for abortion, that language which we tried to explain. Contrast what Biden is saying he wants to do with not with what Trump will do to your life. Don't have the contrast be Trump versus Biden. Have it be Trump versus you and your freedom. And make every single voter have to think through, my God, if this guy's elected, my freedom is gone in this way and that way. I have kids in the school. He says he won't even fund schools that have vaccines. That's insane. He says he wants to have a third term. So I would pit the
Hmm.
freedom of the individual voter against Trump's plan and have them thinking about that as much as which of these two elderly gentlemen they like the best or the least. So I do think that making it about the voter again, that's why I think Kerry Lake lost so badly after Dobbs and others. I think people felt after Dobbs, this is a direct attack on my freedom. And I think, and Biden did this some, I think, the other day. I didn't watch the whole speech with the speech, but making the voter think this is Trump against me and my freedom.
Yeah.
And Biden's
Yeah.
part, but Biden is there. Not you love Biden or don't like him, whatever. He will protect your personal freedom, and so when you're voting for him, you're protecting yourself. And I think that's a big
Well,
part of it. Of
in
Yeah.
closing that.
our Lincoln Project world, the way that we approach like reproductive freedom, abortion rights, is a lot of language that is complementary but different than the way kind of classic pro-choice Democratic groups. They talk a lot about abortion. We talk about more about freedom and about having this taken away. The Kansas referendum is a perfect template for
Yeah.
this. And they're not contradictory, they're complementary. And you will, it's extraordinary how many, or maybe it's not extraordinary, it's encouraging, how many people who would check a box and call themselves anti abortion are moved by this because they see it as taking away a freedom. Which is where it's headed. But next week, Sam, can you put back up this graphic on Project 2025? We're having Andrea Watkins, who's got to turn in for this. She has this great newsletter that has a pretty subtle title: "How Project 2025 Will Ruin Your Life," and
I
it's
didn't
going to
even
be
know you were
fast.
doing that when I said what I said, but that's
Yeah.
exactly what we should be
Yeah,
talking about. This is what's
yeah,
going to happen.
and it really strikes me there is no national Republican policy. I mean,
Well,
normally in presidential campaigns, how you walk into an office and there'll be like these people over there. And it's like, who are they? Well, they're all Rhodes Scholars and Supreme Court clerks, and they're generating policy. And they'll have all these binders on the wall. It'll be like, more paper than the Renaissance. And the Trump campaign doesn't have anything. The Republican Party doesn't have anything. What is the bargain that the Republican Party is striking with voters? That's what I go back in a positive
no,
sense. Me, what do you get? I mean,
no, but
it's,
Project 2025 is
and they don't
we
want to
will,
talk.
no, we will ban
Yeah.
birth control. And then then Trump goes out and says, hey, I'm considering banning birth control. I'll think about that. And then, of course, the campaign will immediately go out and say, "Oh no, that was like, that was something else. Don't look behind that curtain," because he's already signaled to those people, "I'm with you. I got your back. We're going to do it." And then the normal the Portmans of the world will go out and be on TV tomorrow saying, "Oh, he didn't mean that. That's not," or I didn't see that interview, or whatever the hell they're going to do to
I didn't read
normalize
the
and
tweet.
make it okay. Yeah, exactly. It's a real, and he keeps getting away. He somehow gets away because that's what they're enabling. That's what the Portmans and all these folks are enabling. They're helping normalize that and make it unreal. That it's not real. It's not going to happen. When they've been saying they've got an entire agenda with billions of dollars that was spent to develop it in think tanks and to put disinformation out there. And I think, we've got to raise that alarm. I think, and that's why next week's show is so important. I hope
And
people
one
tune.
one
Yeah.
thing I add is I don't want to get too intense about this, but I feel like when I watch Trump, I see where he's going, which is what he says is what he's previewing he will do, and if he says it, then he can claim a mandate if he wins. So when
Hmm.
he,
Right.
like the wall at the beginning, the wall was the crazy thing. Rob Portman would say they're never going to build that wall. I remember him saying that. So every little drop of a hint about a third term or everything 2025, when he says it, I believe that he's thinking, well, when I win, I will tell people I did say it. So now I'm going to do it. So everything he actually says, I think you should take especially seriously. I don't know what he isn't saying that he wants to do, but the things he is saying are the things I think he is intentionally creating a mandate for if he were to win. And that should scare us.
Yeah. One of the things I really been thinking about a lot is these are the last two candidates we have who were born in the shadow of World War II. And either one of them will be their oldest president. And they inherited, they're the heirs to the greatest generation that we are celebrating going into Memorial Day and the torch that they passed. And which way is it going to pass? Is it going to be passed forward, which is Biden? I mean, Biden is not the youngest guy, but he is one of the youngest administrations. He has these policies that really affect people's lives across the board. There is no policy Republicans have. There's a darkness to where Trump wants to take the country. And to me, as someone who's like so many others, my dad fought 3 years in the South Pacific. It just is such a betrayal of what they were handed. And it's really a collapse of any sort of moral authority in the Republican Party. Well, look, we're hitting our time limit here. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Uh, as you can see, David Pepper, you've got to be following him, listening to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Read his Substack. He has a new podcast that he started,
I
and
even
he
make
also
cartoons.
and he makes cartoons, and he also does very very lovely paintings that you should check out. See, there you
Wow,
go.
you guys are
Yep.
good.
Um, uh, I love it, and don't miss the Trippi show. That Trippi show, which is a rare opportunity to hear from Joe, and subscribe to Resolute Square. Uh, we're out there. We're fighting back. I mean, we're not a big corporate organization. We just have you. Let me mention one other thing. There's a fascinating organization. How to say it? Organization that does a series of events. 5 things I've learned. You can check out their website. And they have one tomorrow night with Beto O'Rourke. This thing will be huge. So go and sign up, listen to it. And he will talk about the 5 things he's learned and the future. And we weren't with him tonight, but Brother Rick Wilson, who's been under the weather with pneumonia, make sure you read his Substack and also the Enemies List podcast. Thanks very much. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. And remember, it's all about democracy.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
David.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.